कुंज बिहारी राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा शील प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा 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 शील प्रभुपादा प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगा माई यमुना माई की तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की सामवेद भक्त वृंद की गौ प्रेमानंदे all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 3rd chapter, 24th and 25th verse. Can you hear me? Is it audible? तत्ते निरीक्ष्यो न पितापि देहकृद् तत्ते निरीक्ष्यो न पितापि देहकृद् दक्षो ममाद्वेट् तदनुव्रताश्चये दक्षो ममाद्वेट् तदनुव्रताश्चये यो विश्वसृज्ञज्ञगतं वरोरुमाम् यो विश्वसृज्ञगतं वरोरुमाम् Anagasang durvachasa karotiraha. Anagasang durvachasa karotiraha. Tatte nirikshyo na pitapi dehakrid. Daksho mamadvirtad anuvratashchatiye. Yo visvasrigyagnya gatang varorumam. Anagasang durvachasa karotiraha. Tatte nirikshyo na pitapi dehakrid. Daksho mamadvirtad anuvratashchaye. Yo vishvasragyagnya gatang varorumam. Anagasang durvachasa karotiraha. Tatte niriksho na pitapi dehakrid. Mamadvirtad anuvratashchaye. Yo vishvasragyagnya gatang varorumam. Anagasang durvachasa karotiraha. Tatte niriksho na pitapi dehakrid. Daksho mamadvirtad anuvratashchaye. Yo vishvasrigyagnya gatang varorumam. Anagasang durvachasa karotiraha. Tatte niriksho na pitapi dehakrid. Daksho mamadvirtad anuvratashchaye. Yo vishvasragyagnya gatang varorumam. Anagasang durvachasa karotiraha. Mataji? No? Okay. Tatte niriksho na pitapi dehakrid. Daksho mamadvirtad anuvratashchaye. Yo vishvasrigyagnya gatang varorumam. Anagasang durvachasa karotiraha. Tat, therefore, te, your, nirikshaha, to be seen, na, not, pita, your father, api, although, dehakrit, the giver of your body, dakshaha, daksha, mama, my, dvit, envious, tat anuvrataha, his Daksha's followers, cha, also, ye, who, yaha, who, Daksha, Vishvasrik, of the Vishvasriks, Yajnagatam, being present at the sacrifice, Vara Uru, O Sati, Mam, me, Anagasam, being innocent, Durvachasa, with cruel words, Akarot Tiraha, has insulted, Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, you should not see your father, although he is the giver of your body, because he and his followers are envious of me. Because of this envy, O most worshipful one, he has insulted me with cruel words, although I am innocent. Purport. For a woman, both the husband and the father are equally worshipable. The husband is a protector of a woman during her youthful life, whereas the father is a protector during her childhood. Thus, both are worshipable, but especially the father because he is the giver of the body. Lord Shiva reminded Sati, your father is undoubtedly worshipable, even more than I am, but take care, for although he is the giver of your body, he may also be the taker of your body, because when you see your father, he may insult you because of your association with me. An insult from a relative is worse than death, especially when one is well situated. I'm just going to read the 25th verse as well. Yadi vrajisyasi yati yaya madvacho bhadrang bhavatya na tato bhavishyati sambhavitasya swajanat parabhavo yada sasadyo maranaya kalpate. Translation. If in spite of this instruction you decide to go, neglecting my words, the future will not be good for you. You are most respectable, and when you are insulted by your relative, this insult will immediately be equal to death. Once again, 24. Therefore, you should not see your father, although he is the giver of your body, because he and his followers are envious of me. Because of his envy, O most worshipful one, he has insulted me with cruel words, although I am innocent. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayang Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padang Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhang Vitangscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So before I start, I would like to get all the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, and also from Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, so I could speak something along the lines of Shastra and Srila Prabhupada. So we've been discussing this chapter for the past couple of weeks now, and the current scenario in this chapter, in this verse, is that we see that Sati is torn between two situations. She's in a position where she is going inside and outside the house because she's trying to choose between her husband, Lord Shiva, and her father, Daksha, because she wants to go to this sacrifice that her father is performing. But she cannot make up her mind to go or to not go because she's conflicted internally. And this kind of internal conflicts are very difficult to resolve because both parties who are involved are equally respectable, as Srila Prabhupada says. Especially the father, because the wife should not go against the father. According to the Vedic traditions, the wife should not be going against her fathers, against her husband. So the two main challenges that Sati is facing in this shloka is that both her father and husband deserve equal respect. So she doesn't know who she should respect more, her father or her husband, and whether she should stay or whether she should leave. That's the other conflict. So it's interesting to see that we are all put in these kinds of situations in our lives where we have to make some sort of a decision, and these decisions are not easy to make. We get placed in so many scenarios in life where we have to make a decision on the spot, and we don't even have time to think about these decisions. So this is exactly what Sati is going through. Although she has time to decide, but she's panicking internally because she really wants to go to her father's, sacrifice and meet all her family members, but at the same time she doesn't want to disrespect her husband, Lord Shiva, who is neither a Jiva Tattva nor a Vishnu Tattva. So this is the scenario, and this is the internal conflict in Sati's head. So who should get more respect in listening to it? Whose advice should Sati be listening to, her father's or Lord Shiva's? So this is basically what we'll be discussing in this class today. So when we make decisions, our material Nitya Baddhas, when we make our decisions, there's various factors involved. It's not just that we can make a decision like that. The decision is based on our desires. We make our decisions according to our emotions. We make our decisions based on how attached we are to the topic or the decision that needs to be made for. We also make a decision based on how much is at stake, or how important it is to us, or how much profit we can see that's coming out of it. Another way we make a decision is our duty. Like, what is our duty? Is it right for me to do this, or is it wrong? So we also take that into consideration. And most importantly, our material conditioning based on the three modes of material nature. Which mode are we associated with at that moment of decision making? As well as which mode of nature are we associated in general, because we're constantly fluctuating between the three modes. No one is ever in Sattva Guna, no one is ever in Rajoguna, and no one is exactly in Tamoguna. We're always fluctuating throughout the day, throughout our lives. So it's very difficult for us to choose, and we can understand, we can sympathize with Sati because it's not difficult. I mean, it's not easy, to just make such a difficult decision. Although she's been given excellent advice by Lord Shiva, who is one of the 12 Mahajans, and his advice is almost flawless. She should listen to it, but she's still conflicted. Now, when it comes to duty and performing our duty, there's a lot of sacrifices involved. So sometimes we have to make sacrifices in our duty, and sometimes these sacrifices are just not enough. For example, a mother and her child. The mother goes above and beyond to take care of the child. If the child is hungry, she gives up everything that she's doing and makes sure that the child is fed on time. If the child is sick, she stays awake with the child. She stays awake all night, making sure that the child doesn't get worse. What else? So the bond between a mother and a child is something so precious and something so difficult for others to understand unless one gets in that position. But something that's higher than this example of a mother and a child is the gopis, and how they gave up everything. They gave up all their prescribed duties. They're cooking, they're boiling the milk, they're feeding their childs, them hanging out with their husbands, pleasing their husbands, brothers, grandfathers, fathers, everything. They dropped everything in a second to go to Krishna when he played the flute and invited them to come to the forest. Without even thinking, just leaving and going to Krishna just because he desired it is the perfection of duty, so to say, although this doesn't really fall under Varnashram Dharma anymore. It's just spiritual duty at this point, Sanatana Dharma. And Krishna was very, very pleased with this. Although the family members of the gopis couldn't relate to why they were running away, Some even tried to stop them. And the ones who were left behind, they gave up their material bodies and attained spiritual bodies. But it was just pleasing to Krishna. And this effort of pleasing Krishna is not so easy for us, especially when we're so deeply materially conditioned. The gopis, they're on a whole different level, and we can only aspire to get to their level through devotional service, by following Prabhupada's teachings, by following the orders of our spiritual master. It's very difficult for us to just simply get there just like that, because we don't have that love for Krishna yet. We're trying through our sadhana, our devotional practice, to wake up on time for Mangal Arati, to chant our rounds early, to read something of Srila Prabhupada's books, to offer some service in the temple or go on Harinam. So many different ways to serve the Lord, but sometimes we just get lazy. It's hard. Some days we don't get enough sleep and then we're tired the whole day. So there's so many factors that hinder us from just surrendering to Krishna, like the gopis did. But through devotional service, over time, these hindrances, they can be overcome. And when we overcome them, we'll be able to surrender to Krishna, like the gopis did. Maybe not in this life or the next, surely, but one day we will be able to do so. This surrendering to Krishna, it requires one thing. It requires focus, dedication. Without this focus and dedication, we cannot do this. There's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita 2.41 where Krishna says, those whose minds are not resolute cannot, and those whose minds are not resolute and many branch cannot take up this determination in devotional service. So we have to be, and he uses the word Vyavasyatmika Buddhi. So we have to be Vyavasyatmika Buddhi at all times. We have to always engage ourselves in the 9 ways of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Padasevanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam, all these things. Even if we cannot do all 9, we should try to do at least one, whatever we like. If someone likes chanting, they can chant all day. If someone likes to read, they can read. If someone wants to listen, they can just listen to lectures. So in this way, we should always engage ourselves in Krishna consciousness, because the moment we're not engaged in Krishna consciousness, we're not in Krishna consciousness. We're under the influence of the external energy, which is Maya. And this prevents us, this disturbs us in the sense that we cannot focus on Krishna. We get distracted by so many things out there. Back in the day, maybe 20 or 25 years ago, they didn't have television, so people were a lot more focused. They had less distractions. But nowadays, there's TV, there's mobile phones, there's computers. So many ways to keep ourselves engaged other than engaging ourselves in Krishna consciousness. And this is the problem of Kali Yuga. Everyone is lazy, everyone is disturbed, everyone is misdirected, and it's difficult, but we still have to try. And Radharani is the best example of a soul surrendered to Krishna. She has no other desires other than Krishna. She wakes up thinking of Krishna, she goes to bed thinking of Krishna. It's something that we cannot aspire to in this current level of conditioning. So that's something that we have to work on. Then another thing that we see in this verse, the 2 different decision makers. One is Lord Shiva, and then there is there's Sati. So Shiva, we can see that Sati is struggling really hard to make a choice. But Lord Shiva is helping her by telling her what is right and what is wrong. He's giving her ample amount of instructions, ample amount of advice. But he doesn't force her to choose either of those. He just tells her what it is and how it is. It's kind of like how Krishna gives us a little independence that we have to choose whether we want to serve him or not, because at the end of the day, we only have two choices, whether we surrender to Krishna or we don't surrender to Krishna. So in the same way, Sati uses this independence that she has to Jai Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki Jai, Jai Shri Govardhan ki Jai, Jai Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki. So Lord Shiva is only trying to protect his wife by instructing her about what is right and what is wrong, and he leaves it to Sati to make the right decision. But Sati, as a decision maker, is burdened with what to choose. She, like I said before, she wants to respect her father's wishes as well as respect Lord Shiva's wishes, which is her husband. But she's struggling. Normally, someone who is materially conditioned, who, if we were in her position, we would try to get out of that scenario by changing the facts. It's called like manipulating the information so that the other person can make the decision what we want them to choose, you know? Like, if we provide someone with the incorrect or not complete facts, then that kind of forces them to make the decision based on the information we're giving them. And this is what we would do. But Sati is not trying to do so. She's not trying to escape. She's not trying to lie. She's not trying to cheat her husband or cheat Daksha. She's just trying to really make up her mind with the given circumstances. And she didn't know what to do. Although she knew the exalted position of Lord Shiva, still she wasn't 100% sure of whether she should listen to him or not. Like, it's pretty obvious that she should have listened to Lord Shiva, but Prabhupada in the purport says that, where is it? Not in this purport, but later on in the next chapter, Prabhupada says that the reason why Sati was struggling to do so is because of her emotional nature as a woman. So that is the reason, one of the reasons why she was struggling to make this decision. So women in general are very sociable and active beings, and they love to meet and talk to people, other people. And they play a very important role in society and social circles in coordinating and binding relationships because they're good at communication. Us men, we're not so good at communication all the time. We try to say minimal and get away with it and hope that it will be done. But women, they go the extra step and make sure that everything is communicated through and the task is done. But we see that somehow Sati is not able to do it. She's conflicted. She's not able to choose a decision. She's going back and forth from the house. But towards the end of the verse, she makes up her mind and she decides to go to the sacrifice of Daksha, who's her father, and he's organizing the sacrifice where all her family members are there. And there we see that when she gets there, her father doesn't even acknowledge her presence. Her brothers don't acknowledge her presence. All the brahmanas assembled there don't acknowledge her presence. The only people who acknowledge her presence is her mother, her sisters. They give her a hug, they give her new garments and everything, but she gets no response from her father. And because of this, her heart is broken, shattered. She gets so upset that she emulates herself in the fire that's going on in the sacrifice. And when Lord Shiva finds out about this from Narad Muni, he is angry at a whole different level. He takes a strand of his hair and chants some incantations and invokes the presence of a demon named, what's his name? Maharaj, do you know his name? It's not Virabhadra. Virabhadra. So he orders that demon to go chop off Daksha's head. So in contrast to Sati's, and this decision by Lord Shiva it's a very heavy one. He just says, go chop off his head. Like, on the spot, he makes a decision. Whereas Sati was unable to make the decision as fast as Lord Shiva did. So this is the contrast between the two decision makers, Sati and Lord Shiva. Shiva was able to make it fast, and Sati struggled with the decisions. And she ended up making the wrong decision, although she was given all the information by Lord Shiva. He said he soberly analyzed the whole situation, and he knew what was going to happen. He told her 3 things. Don't go see your father because he's only the giver of your body. Because he's the giver of your body, he might as well take your body. Because Daksha is a progenitor. His task that was assigned to him was to simply create progeny. Not really so much to be like a fatherly figure for Sati and the rest of his daughters or sons. And the 3rd thing is he was envious of Shiva. So when one is envious, that person can, whatever decision he makes based on that envy, it cannot be right. No way. So, but Lord Shiva was not envious. He was indifferent to Daksha's insults. Although those insults were very personal and very harsh, they didn't affect Lord Shiva. So he used his intelligence. He was dhira, sober. And because he was sober, he was able to provide correct advice. He was able to see the future consequences of Sati going to the sacrifice. And he told her multiple times. He gave her many, many verses. He tells her why he's in that condition. Like yesterday's verse was because he is in Vishuddha Sattva. He's not in just regular Sattva. He's not a conditioned soul like us. He's between conditioned and liberated, and Vishnu Tattva. So Lord Shiva knows what is going to happen in the future, whereas Sati didn't know that. So he could have used his power in the beginning when Daksha insulted him and just killed him in the beginning, but he didn't. He remained quiet. He remained indifferent. He just tolerated, just like a true Vaishnava should. And Lord Shiva is the best of the Vaishnavas. So he set a very good example for us by showing ample amount of tolerance. But when Sati gave up her body, he wasn't happy about it, because he knew that it was because of Daksha that she gave up her body. And at that point, he decided to punish him and teach him a lesson by chopping his head off. Of course, later on, he replaced the head with a goat's head, and that was Daksha's appearance for a few millenniums. But that could have all been avoided if Daksha would not have been so envious of Krishna. I mean, of Lord Shiva, sorry. They say in Krishna consciousness, everything is okay, everything can be fixed except for envy. If a devotee is envious, there's no way he can progress in spiritual life. He will remain as a Kanishtadhikari forever. Unless envy is given up, or one makes a sincere effort to give up envy, it's very difficult to progress in spiritual life. And right before Sati gave up her body, she did 3 things that I mentioned, which I said before, where Lord Shiva told her not to go see her father, that he's just a body giver, and that he's envious of me. These 3 things Sati realized just before jumping into the fire, and she realized what a big mistake she had committed. And it was too late for her, so she just gave up her body. So the point I'm trying to make is that when we make decisions, we don't know what is right and what is wrong all the time. Sometimes what seems right seems wrong to us, and what seems wrong seems right to us. And we're always conflicted, especially in spiritual decisions. So one must approach a spiritual master. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadeshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha. One must approach a spiritual master and render service unto him, because they have seen the truth. They know the consequences of your actions, so they should be approached, like Arjuna did in the Bhagavad Gita. He was conflicted with miserly weakness, karpanya dosha, pahata swabhava. And then he didn't know what was right and wrong, so he surrendered to Krishna. Prichami twang dharma samuda chetaha. And then he asked Krishna to tell him what is right and what is wrong. Shishyastehang shadimam tvam prapannam. He became his disciple. So in the same way, we should always approach our spiritual master or a senior Vaishnava or other devotees who, if there's no senior devotee available, for advice. Because if we let our false ego get in the way and we end up making a decision based on our false ego, then that's really counterproductive, because it won't help us progress in spiritual life. It will just hinder us. So if you just follow examples of great devotees like Arjun, like Dhruva Maharaj, who surrendered to Narad Muni and started chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, to so many other Vaishnavas, to Bali Maharaj, who just surrendered to Vamandev in a second, in a heartbeat. And he was blessed with so many benedictions. There's so many other devotees who can inspire us to follow in their footsteps and take advice from Vaishnavas, because that's what Vaishnavas are for. That's why devotee association is so important, because without devotee association, where would we be? It would be very difficult for us to differentiate between right and wrong. Being in constant association with devotees is what's keeping us progressing in Krishna consciousness, in our spiritual life. Although we don't see it on a daily level, but those small steps of progress, they're adding up. And when we collect enough points, we'll be eligible to go back home, back to Godhead, like Srila Prabhupada says. It's by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, by his prayers, that we can attain the spiritual world after giving up this material body. But we have to make use of all the resources that Prabhupada has given us. He's given us this movement. He's given us so many temples around the world. He's given us amazing disciples who have become spiritual masters and guiding the disciples so nicely. So yeah, we should always, asking someone for advice does not mean that you're less intelligent. But not asking someone for advice when you don't know what to do, that's showing that you don't have intelligence. So we should always ask for help. It doesn't minimize our position. It doesn't make us less of a devotee. Asking for help, it makes you better, because then you have someone else's input. And the reason why one should ask senior devotees, especially pure devotees, is because they have the extra input from the Paramatma. The Super Soul is guiding them to make decisions, to suggest others what to do and what not to do. We're not at that stage yet. Yes, we know that this absolute truth exists in three phases: the Brahman, the Paramatma, and Bhagavan. But that doesn't mean, just because we know those three, doesn't mean that we have completely realized Krishna 100%. We need help, and we need to approach pure devotees for this reason, because they have seen the truth. We haven't. So what makes us qualified to make these decisions if we haven't seen the truth? We're so unqualified. So just surrender to the instructions of the spiritual master. Goes a long way in ensuring our spiritual progress in life. Lord Shiva is always meditating on the Super Soul. He's always in trance, always in samadhi. So whatever advice he gave to Sati was impeccable. There's no reason why, in hindsight looking back at it, there's no reason why Sati should have rejected his advice. The whole scenario could have been prevented. Daksha could have kept his head and not gotten a goat's head. Sati wouldn't have to jump in the fire. Lord Shiva wouldn't have to ask Virabhadra to kill Daksha. There wouldn't be so to say, war starting between Lord Shiva's associates and Daksha's associates. Hobgoblins fighting with progenitors, armies. It was just a mess. There was no need for that. But this was arranged by Krishna to teach us that when we make decisions, we should always consult, especially if we are not sure. We should not be whimsical and just make decisions based on the mode of passion, and most definitely not in the mode of ignorance, because there's no need for me to say what's going to happen, because it's obvious. So, yeah, that's all I have to say, I think. If there's any comments or someone wants to add anything, please go ahead.
Thank you, that was great. I liked that.
Thank you, Maharaj.
I really liked it. Just one very little comment is that in the first line of the Sanskrit, Deha Krid, in the word for word is the giver of the body, but Deha Krid could also possibly mean taker or destroyer or cutter, something like one who cuts, damages the body.
Yeah.
It's just a minor.
Yeah, because the root word rita, it comes from giving up. Like, so krita means giving up as well, like you said. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that's why it could mean both things: giver and taker of the body.
Sort of, yeah. And then something I can't really understand, it seems, anyway, I just can't really understand. The very last sentence in the purport, an insult from a relative is worse than death, okay, but then especially when one is well situated, I can't quite grasp that.
So this last sentence of the purport remind me of the Ramayana, because when Ravana was being advised by his family members like Kumbhakarna and what was his other brother's name? With the V? Vibhishan. So Vibhishan was, although he was providing perfect, impeccable advice, Ravana thought of it as like insult, because he was not saying what Ravan wanted him to say. He was saying, Vibhishan was saying what was right. And because Ravana couldn't understand this, he took it as an insult. And Kumbhakarna, on the other hand, was a demon. He was giving ridiculous advice that Sita should be killed and he should just marry Sita against her wishes and all these things. But Ravan liked that. And so this is how I interpreted the sentence, because if Ravan had just listened to what Vibhishan had said, then he probably would have survived. Lord Rama would have easily forgiven him, because he said that if Lord Rama said that if he would forgive everything that Ravana has done if he just came and surrendered himself to me. But Ravan didn't, so that led to his death. Whereas on the other hand, we see Dasharath Maharaj. He was advised very nicely by his ministers, by other kings. Other court, whatever they're called in the courts, the
Courtiers.
Courtiers, yes.
Something.
And those courtiers were not afraid to speak to the king and give them the truth as it is. Whereas in Ravana's associates, they were afraid to tell Ravana what was true. Except for Vibhishan, no one else was telling the truth. Everyone was giving their own versions of the right thing to do. But for Dasharath Maharaj, all his courtiers were 100% following the Vedas and Shastra and giving advice based on that. So how can something that's coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead be wrong? So if one simply follows that, then everything is nice. So that was the difference between Dasharath Maharaj and Ravana. How two different kings went two opposite ways because of how they took advice from their relatives. So that's how I saw the last line.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
What I would like to ask is, seeing that we have a situation where decision making to follow instruction based on authoritativeness. So, in general, practicing Krishna consciousness, we find we have our local authorities under the basis of management, and then we have our spiritual master. So sometimes the desire of the spiritual master is that he instructs the disciple to do a particular type of service, either go out on kirtans or distribute books or prasadam, something like that. It may come into a situation where there may be a need for a particular service or gap to be filled within the management structure. So please advise in a way that we wouldn't cause offense either way. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Prabhu. I serve in the New York temple as the temple commander there, and I go through this every day. I'm on the other side where I'm requesting devotees to do things, and they're giving me a whole multitude of reasons as to why they don't want to do services or why they think that someone else should do it. So, as far as performing the service based on, the ideal situation is that one should be engaged in service based on their nature. If someone likes to study, that should be the ideal service. If one wants to go on Harinam, they should be led on Harinam. But at the same time, there's a balance, because staying in the temple means that you have to serve the temple a little bit. So I personally feel that one should follow their spiritual master's instruction of what service they ask the disciple to do. But at the same time, they should find at least an hour or 1.5 hours or 2 hours maximum to do some temple service that is administered by the temple authorities. Because after all, when the spiritual master is not, his spiritual master is not always present in the temple with us. He's not walking around holding your hand and showing you, oh, my dear disciple, do this today, do that tomorrow. No, he gives you your independence to go through this by yourself. So our authority becomes the temple authorities at that time. The temple president, for example, the vice president, or some senior devotee. So we should try our best to accommodate as little bit of service to the temple. If our service is something that takes us out of the temple, like Harinam, for example, we should do Harinam. Not saying that no one should not do Harinam. No, do Harinam, do it, but also do something for the temple, a little bit, like an hour or two of service. So that way, you're satisfying your spiritual master's instruction as well as satisfying your temple authorities. Now, I chose Harinam because that just came to my head. Someone could just be a brahmana and just likes to study all day, and really study not just for personal gyan, but maybe to give lectures or to really study the scriptures so they can help others. So that person should be led to study as much as he likes, but he has to do some service for the temple. It cannot just be that I do study all day and not do anything for the temple. That's my personal opinion. I hope I was able to answer your question. Yes, Maharaj.
A sort of classic dilemma or situation, whatever you'd call it. But the GBC body is produced, GBC body which is composed largely of spiritual masters, not entirely, but actually I'm not sure, must be at least around 75% they're spiritual masters also. But there's a paper put out called Parallel Lines of Authority, discussing how to, you could say, balance or deal with these types of situations you're talking about. And I would suggest that devotees read it.
Could you say the name one more time? I didn't quite get the name of that.
Parallel Lines of Authority. Parallel Lines of Authority. How to work with, instructions given by the spiritual master and responsibilities in terms of where you're living and the situation you're in that sense.
Thank you very much. Any more questions, comments, critics? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to their lordships. Sorry.